Welcome, everyone, to Everyday Passions. This is the show where my guests share one of their passions and how they've used that passion to influence or impact the lives of others. Today, my guest is Kat Sturtz. Welcome, Kat. I am so happy to have you here today.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be with you and to talk with you. And like we were doing even before we went live, we were just chit-chatting away.
Absolutely. I love it. And Kat and I have actually interviewed each other before. So we're kind of like old hands at this, but it's always so beautiful to be with you. Now, before I introduce Kat, let me just quickly share a little bit about what I do. That I am the client relations specialist. I'm also a personal business coach. And I help leaders and decision makers who want to grow their business by building profitable client relationships. And I also work with highly motivated professionals and women who are in business and who want to grow their business so that they take their passion and make a profit. So Kat, let me go ahead and share a little bit about Kat Sturtz with you. Kat is a business life mentor, and she calls herself the purgatory relief coach for people who think marketing is hell. Is that you? Then you might need Kat. She helps time and cash-strapped home-based solopreneurs who are stuck, stumped, or stalled move past the obstacles that keep them trapped in despair and leaking money so that they can rock their unique path to success. I love that description, Kat. It encompasses quite a bit.
It does. And it took many years for me to massage what I do and can do and what I love doing and what I found really resonated with the best people to work with me and me to work with them. People kind of self-identify themselves with this.
Exactly. And I hope for those of you who are listening, you took that away. That if you started a business this year, say 6 months, even 6 months ago, it does take a while sometimes to get it right, to get your niche right. You may know the market, the general market of who you serve, but to get your niche right, how you serve that market, it may take a while for you to massage that, as Kat said, and get it right. So Kat is also passionate about finding ways to be of service to her local community, which she considers to be a responsibility and the privilege of every citizen. So Kat, I'm going to go right into speaking about your passion because I have an idea based on that introduction what your passion is, but I'd love to find out from you even more. What would you say to us, to your listeners, to your viewers? What is one of the things that you're truly passionate about in your business or life?
Well, as you said, community service is right up there. Long ago, because I've been doing freelance work and consulting work since 1971. So I've been around for a while. And in addition to finding that sweet spot niche, what I wanted to do has changed over time too, which also affects that niche. And this is good. I'm going to upload this free for your community. This is my 10 commandments for finding time that I did. Well, this one's dated 2013, and I know I originally wrote this way before that when I did a book about volunteering way back when. And number 9 on that list is be a discriminate volunteer. Community service is not a waste of time. I have found community service helps me in my business in a number of ways. One, I find clients, I find resources, I find happiness, I find release of stress because I love helping others and I don't like everything I do to be tied to a paycheck or an income generating opportunity. Those find their way in through that way sometimes and oftentimes, but it's not why I volunteer. I volunteer, as you mentioned, because I think it's both a privilege and a responsibility of a citizen of whatever country you're in, wherever you're living. If you're free in that environment, I think it's a privilege to be able to serve your community. And people say, well, I don't want to do this or that. It's like, no, just like as we need to find our niche in business, find your niche for helping in your community. And some of the things I do in my community you wouldn't think that that would be part of the business plan, like helping at the food pantry. But then there are other things that are. I mean, I was 7.5 years. I served on the Santa Lake County Sheriff's Posse, which is a regular deputized police deputy. We were a volunteer unit, but we took training with the Detroit Mounted Police with our horses, and it had nothing to do with business, right? Mm-hmm. But I was on the farm at the time. I loved horseback riding. I had a horse, and it was a way to serve my community in a way that was challenging my skills and ability. And while it didn't relate directly to my business, I grew in confidence in myself and what I could accomplish and the challenges I could take on. I mean, nothing challenges you more than going through a smoke-filled arena that is filled with obstacles and a squad car with its siren going and lights flashing, and you can't see the door to go out, but you know that at some point while you're going through this obstacle course, a member of the Detroit Mounted Police is going to throw one or more lit firecrackers under you and your horse.
Wow.
And I was so proud to make it through all of that training that really stepped up my confidence level. So,
absolutely. I can see that.
So community service can be a way to challenge yourself to do things that you may not know that you could do or that you would like to do. Early on in my first marriage, I was married 25 years the first time to a dairy farmer. And I was a city girl. I was brought up in Detroit proper, the city of Detroit. And I became a farmer and learned farming, but I also became a volunteer with Michigan Farm Bureau. And that's where I learned first my graphic arts training skills, my PR skills, my spokesperson skills. I had an opportunity to be their on location television reporter for a while. So I got all of this free training by being a volunteer that now serves me really well in the work I do.
Excellent. What you have shared, Kat, is so profound because from giving of yourself, because that's what volunteering is. It's giving of yourself, giving of your time. Sometimes it's giving of other resources. From that, even though that was not the intended consequence, you have gained a lot because you saw your confidence soar when you were able to overcome those challenges. And the benefits that you got were just like a side effect of being willing to give of yourself and your time.
Yes.
So you did mention about a particular time. So was there an event or was there something that kind of triggered this awareness that you wanted to give, you wanted to accept that it's a part of your responsibility as a citizen to give to others?
Yes. And I've had it with me for a long time. And it was being in the Brownies and Girl Scouts when I was little. Servicing our community was part of what we did in scouting. And it grew up with me. And I've always enjoyed it and took it as the responsibility it is. Later on, I realized it was also a privilege.
Tell us a little bit about that. Would you expand on that, please?
About being a privilege or about scouting?
About a privilege.
About privilege. I think it's a privilege because we get to choose what type of community service we want to be involved with. And we can cherry pick. And one of the things that I had in my book that really interested the editors when I first submitted the book proposal on this particular book, it's still available out there, but it's not for sale anymore. It was written, several decades ago. But the last chapter is how to volunteer gracefully, because just as not every type of business we're involved with, or every client, or whether we're the client or somebody is our client, we're not always the best fit forever. And you don't need to burn bridges. There are a lot of people, I think, volunteering that shouldn't be volunteering anymore with the entity they're with, because they're drawing that organization down. They grumble about it. They feel it's an obligation rather than a privilege. Anytime that community participation begins to feel like a job to you rather than a privilege, when it begins to feel like an obligation that you must do, maybe it's time to step back and do something else and let somebody else with newfound enthusiasm get in there with some new ideas. So that's why I really say it's a privilege, because I don't think it should be an obligation, not when it's your choice.
I agree with you. And there is such a difference in emotion, in how you feel when you have to, as opposed to want to gladly. So let me pause here for a moment and welcome those of our listeners or viewers who are watching the live. If you're watching the live, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching the replay, we appreciate you just as well, and appreciate if you just type in #replay. And thank you for being here. My guest today is Kat Sturtz, and Kat is basically talking about the importance to her, the joy she has gained from volunteering volunteering in causes that she enjoys, and the benefits that have come as a result of doing volunteer work. So are you someone who is volunteering in different areas? Is this something that you want to consider? Then you might benefit from hearing from Kat how she has taken this and helped to shape her business around what she has learned as a volunteer. So Kat, how has this passion for volunteering, for giving of yourself, giving of your time, impacted the lives of others? And the others might be the people that you actually help, and also it might be how you're able to transfer this to your business. You touched on that, but you can talk a little bit more about that, please.
Well, there are two other volunteer opportunities that I do now. Besides the ones I've mentioned. I'm no longer with Farm Bureau, but my husband and I took Skywatcher training. We live in a rural area, so we were trained to be bad weather spotters. So, we're in a very rural area that has tornadoes go through at times, and it can't be identified as a tornado unless a person who's gone through the training, which would include law enforcement and fire department people and things like that. But there are also private citizens who are trained, and we're called sometimes and asked, how's the weather in your area? We have a special number that we call to report certain weather. And that's interesting. And I've met, people in other fields that learn about me and my business for doing that. The other thing, and you already know this, Yvonne, I'm involved with community theater. And it was something I was interested in as a child and throughout high school, but never had the opportunity to participate in because I started working when I was 11. But the last 20 years or so, I've been quite involved with community theater, both on stage and behind the scenes. And again, just like Farm Bureau, it's really up to my confidence. It's given me access to a broader range of people outside, the narrow focus that we have. It's introduced me to people. People learn about my skills. And just this summer, I helped my husband do a volunteer project with one of our local, it's the next town over, their historical society. We recreated the founder in a live video. So we took the only picture of the founder of the town that could be found, and my husband became that person and delivered a script, and I used my audio and video editing skills and directing skills and acting skills, and the picture morphs into my husband talking about founding the town, and it's now on display at the local theater. And I love that because it takes people that go through the museum from, oh, that's nice, oh yeah, that's old stuff, into understanding and being more interested in history and things like that. So
that sounds, you live a pretty varied life out there in the country, don't you? It's not boring
flexibility and
at all.
freedom. And I have a very eclectic background, but there is a thread of communication through all of it. And I'm never bored because the simplest things interest me, but I don't like to stay with one project too long. So having all of these varied interests introduced me to new projects, and I get to dabble in a lot of different things and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds like that's perfect for your personality.
Yes.
So then, Kat, tell me, what would you tell our listeners or viewers who are thinking of doing something, say as a volunteer? We know you can volunteer in children's causes, women's causes, and so forth. What sort of mindset would you encourage them to go into volunteering with? How should they sort of perceive this even before they start so that they're going in with realistic expectations?
Number one, you do have time for it. If you think you are too busy, then you need to look carefully at what you're doing and where you could carve out even the littlest bit of time. Volunteering should, sometimes if all you can do is send a donation in, take the time to do that, if that's the most you really feel that you can do. Next, look for something that's interesting to you. Reach out in your community, ask people what they volunteer with, because there are probably a lot more opportunities within your local community than you ever thought of that could use a volunteer. And I've done some consulting work with various organizations over the years, even headed a few of them up. And one of the things that I am constantly telling the members is, if you want more volunteers and you want more active volunteers, you need to ask people to join and to say, can you help with this? Not, can you come and help us? Can you help with this? So make it a little easier for them by showing up or calling and asking questions and saying, do you need help with something? Is there a way I could be involved with your organization? Number three, know that it's not a lifetime commitment. If you don't like what you're doing, figure out a graceful way of backing out. Those would be the three things.
Yeah, that can be a little tricky for some people, and I suspect that's why some people hesitate, because they feel if they volunteer their time and they don't like it, they're stuck. You know, someone is going to think they're not true to their word, but as you just said, figure out a way to gracefully back out. There's always a way.
There's always a way. When I've backed out of an organization that had come to rely on me, especially, I looked for someone to bring in that could help replace the things I was doing before and help train them before I left. So that was one way that made it feel good to me and also brought in fresh ideas and a fresh perspective. That's one thing that if we tend to stay with something and we find ourselves grumbling too much. I mean, I backed out of being on the board of the community theater because at the time there was too much butting of heads between me being a marketing person and having counseled them as a marketing person and then being a board member. And I got frustrated. So I found other ways of being involved rather than being a board member. My husband's a much better board member for what he handles. And we didn't even have the same responsibilities as board members. So that's a dynamic. There's always a solution. You just have to have a fresh perspective about what you're doing. But I do think, because I've seen it, that longtime members sometimes get grumbly. They either don't feel appreciated anymore, or they're so tied to the way things were done before that they can't see new solutions and can't grow with the community. And sometimes ways of doing it can remain the same forever. You know, that's a possibility. But if you're butting heads with somebody and you find yourself only complaining, then it's really time to look and say, where else could I help and be of service without butting heads? And then again, find a graceful way to do it rather than leaving a big huff and burning bridges and talking down a good community program. That's not necessary.
Right. And that can be such a tricky one because on the one hand, you can have people who have been in an organization for a long time and they're accustomed to doing it a certain way. But then somebody else can come in with fresh ideas that can help them to accelerate the growth of the organization, but they're not willing to accept it. We always did it that way, you know. We always did it that way and it worked, but times have changed.
Right. Or we tried it once and it didn't work. Well, a lot of things, as you know, from doing business. Because so if you look at the community organization, which needs to be run as a business, even though it's not a profit generating machine for individual people, that's the difference. It still needs to be run with a business mind frame and with ideas and solutions. Okay, you know, how can we tweak what we're doing? What worked in the past? If we tried it once and it didn't seem to work the way we expected it to, do we just throw it out, or do we really look and say, maybe the timing wasn't right, maybe the community we serve needs to have it introduced to them again, maybe there are tweaks we can make, but just to say, oh, we tried it once and it didn't work is not really a valid reason to ditch a program.
Wow. Well, Kat, you certainly know the inside of volunteering organizations, different kinds of organizations. You know, frankly, I don't often meet or talk with individuals who have such a varied level of experience in volunteering with different types of organizations. So you definitely would be a valuable resource for anyone who is thinking about venturing into volunteering in their community and how they can go about this. So, Kat, people want to experience more of your passion. So how can they connect with you?
The easiest way is to either go to my website, rockingyourpath.com, look me up on Facebook, and I especially encourage people like Yvonne does, be a part of my Rocking Your Path community on Facebook, which is free and a lot of opportunities to share what you do in business there and community.
Yes, and community. Community is very important. And I love how you keep everything simple. So it's rockingyourpath.com and it's Rocking Your Path Community, right? Is that what
Yes.
it is, the group on Facebook?
Yes.
Great. So my friend, I too enjoyed learning more about ways to ask questions, in the community to find out how you can help, or maybe even sharing specific ways that you can help. Do you need someone who can do X, Y, Z? Because I think sometimes people don't know what to tell you. And when you just ask them, do you need help? Yes, but I don't know how to utilize your services. So thank you, Kat, for educating us on that and sharing your experience and your love for community. I certainly appreciate you. And for our viewers or listeners, whether you're watching us on Facebook or you're going to be watching on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Reach out to Kat if you have any questions, anything you want to know. She's very sweet and she's very agreeable, so she will help you. She's willing to help you. All right, Kat. So thank you so much. And I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
It's always a joy and pleasure meeting up with you.
Thank you so much. And let me go ahead and stop the recording.